why lifting heavy weights and stretching just didn't feel like the best or most efficient way for the body. I was connecting to fascia as a felt sense. I love getting your comments and your questions, and I wanted to start this video today with sharing my journey. I'm Yasmin. I am the founder of SomaSensing. I love talking about fascia as a sense, how this soft matter informs how we move, how we live, and how we heal. And in this video, I really want to guide you to the way that I took the science and the theory and began to embody it. And if you are here and you're learning about fascia and you're wondering, how do I put this into my movement practice or my body work? Well, I'm going to guide you into the way that helped me. So my fascination began in 2003. I had never heard this word fascia, and I was training to help people in a clinical way through Pilates. So learning all the pathologies in the body. And we were introduced to Thomas Myers and his anatomy trains. So Thomas Myers is a body worker, and he began to shift our way of looking at a body of parts to a body as a whole. And his approach was that there are no individual muscles, but there is myofascia, muscle and fascia. Everything is interconnected, and there are these meridians in the body, and how they integrate, how we have spiral motion, and so on. And from then, I'll be honest with you, I could not get it when I first discovered Thomas Myers. And my mentor, Elizabeth Bussey of Polestar Pilates, was also interested in somatic movement. And that shifted everything, introducing fascia as this felt experience. So for example, in Thomas Myers' anatomy trains, we were taught that there is interconnectedness in the front of the body and the back of the body. And when you move, your body, the whole body's moving. So I'm going to give you that motion. And Elizabeth helped us to recognize that just moving at the heels moves the whole body. And if I move the heels away, there's a sense of motion in the front and the back of the body, right? So, and this kind of conveyor belt motion, that's where it began. And so the thing about paying attention to a sensation is you might create a perception of that's what's happening in the body. And later discovering that it's not just front of the body and the back of the body, but everything within this fascial web is moving. The takeaway from that first exploration was that everything is integrated, that you don't need a lot of effort for motion to arise. So that was the first experience. And through Thomas Myers, we were introduced to the people within the space that were informing his work too. So there was Stephen Levin. Stephen Levin is a retired orthopedic surgeon, and he was helping us, or helping Tom, to language the form of our body. So instead of the body as a stacking structure, instead of the body being like a column where we're needing to, align everything, that it is more of a cylindrical container. And this is language that was not taught to me. This is language that I felt. And the way that it was described at the time is that the body is held with forces of tension and compression. Okay, and I tried to figure out what that meant in the body. How did we need to cue? What were we going to guide? And so this is where the journey began. But let me tell you something. The best way for me to understand what Thomas Myers was talking about, what Stephen Levin was talking about, and others, which I'm going to introduce you to, is through this felt sense, through the somatic sense. that no amount of theory is ever going to help you understand this tissue that's both a tissue of form and a sense. So that's where my journey began. And through exploration of some of those somatic movements, we explored Feldenkrais, Traeger, to help us understand the nature of wholeness. And what helped me to recognize the work of Stephen Levin, orthopedic surgeon. So he was calling this form of our body biotensegrity. Tensegrity is a term that's used in architecture, and it helps us to understand how buildings can, or structures, not buildings, structures can hold, like bridges, for example, can be held with tensional cables, and have the force distributed throughout the structure. So it doesn't need a lot of kind of force to hold it in shape. Oh, I'll give you an easier one. A tent. So tents are held with the canvas over the tent and the struts, right? So that's how it was described to us. But what was that sense in the body? That was missing for me. And I remember there was a moment that it emerged. I went, that's what Stephen's talking about. And I was standing, and one of the issues that I had with people coming to have sessions with me is that the diaphragm was always stiff or stuck. And there was stiffness in the neck and shoulders and so on. And I would look at breath work and try and use soft balls. At the time before then, I was using foam rollers and these soft balls to help melt and soften the tissue, right? That's where it began. Guiding breath sensation. So helping them to recognize how, a sigh, eliciting a sigh rather than taking a breath in. And if you're curious about that, I have a video here about why I stopped teaching breath work. So there was a moment in standing. I was standing, I was in standing, and I felt a release in my body. I felt a kind of shift in my body. And the sigh emerged, and I went, oh my goodness, I understand now what those forces of tension and compression are. I don't have to pull anything in. Just softening and letting go allows my body to feel held. So we have a form that is already held. And that was my introduction to the nature of our form through felt sense. Before then, I was co-contracting the core to find balance, for example, but letting go, the body is in integrity. It's already held. So in the absence of strain, it's already held. So that's where it began. And from that journey of exploration, I became really curious. I was kind of hooked on this sensation. I was hooked on the sensation. I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? And I was hooked on fascia research. And through Thomas Myers, I began to learn about others. So there was Gil Hedley, you might hear his name, Gil Hedley. He's got a video on here called The Fuzz Speech. Hand surgeon Dr. Jean-Claude Gimberteau. He's on YouTube with a video called Strolling Under the Skin. Robert Schleip, who's on my channel, you can watch our conversation here. There was, so that was the early days. The early days, I would say from about 2003 to 2010, I only began to know of Robert Schleip in 2009. So before then, it was Gil Hedley, Jaap van der Waal. Jaap van der Waal is an embryologist, and understanding his view took me a while, and I had to experience it in my body. Dr. Jean-Claude Gimberteau, Stephen Levin. Have I missed anyone out? That was kind of the early days. And then by 2009, I was experiencing motion and this spontaneous movement. So fascial unwinding, pandiculation. And I didn't have a name for this inner sense. And it's the first time I discovered Robert Schleip through Thomas Myers. I reached out to him and he sent me a chapter of the book, the book that he contributed to with others. Incredibly generous, beautiful soul, wonderful man. And I read this and went, oh my gosh, it's interoception. That's what I'm sensing. It's called interoception, these sensations that emerge from within. And it took me down the interoception path with others talking about it, not in the fascia community. So this was in the neuroscientist space. So I'm going to leave that for another day, but just to help you understand my connection to fascia. And through Robert Schleip, I discovered there was this Fascia Research Congress and they were looking for people to join. And I became a founder member. I was communicating with people in the Fascia Research Congress at the time, gaining the research papers that were important to inform my practice and to help people like you understand why I move the way that I move and how it's informed by not just fascia research, but nervous system regulation, psychoneuroendocrinology, and more. So coming back to this fascia world. And then from then on, it was at the same time discovering Carla Stecco, the fascial anatomist, together with her brother, and Helene Langevin, who talks about fascia. And she talks about stretching, although I don't like using the word stretch. And so these were the people at the very beginning. And in recent years, I've loved the work of John Sharkey. I think he just, shifts our paradigm in a really simple way. And I've had him on some of my courses, and I would urge you to follow him. There is a platform called the Fascia Hub where you can meet these people and listen to them. And along that journey, there are people who are introducing fascia. Joanne Avison has written an incredible book for movement professionals. So if you want to learn about fascia, they're out there. Graham Scarr is amazing. He's helped me understand why our body moves in a spiral motion and why the energy or vitality comes from fascial hydration. So the work of Gerald Pollack, for example, and gosh, more. Neil Thies is the person that I really connect with in terms of understanding sensation, how our body organizes from the molecule to a complex system, and how everything in the body is communicating from moment to moment. So the work of Neil Thies, he's written a book called Notes on Complexity, and these are the people that I connect with. But Neil Thies, what I love about his approach and the language that he uses, and he talks about consciousness, how we have a knowing beyond the mind, and I call that an inner knowing. And it's from this knowing body that movements emerge, that the body or fascia holds the blueprint of those movements, how it is effortless. So the work of Stephen Levin guides us to why we don't need to add force in the body, for example. So listening to all of these amazing, incredible people within the space that are involved in research informs why my body is moving the way that it is, why lifting heavy weights and stretching just didn't feel like the best or most efficient way for the body. I was connecting to fascia as a felt sense. And as I was connecting to this sense, I began to recognize, and to be honest, I didn't suddenly wake up one day and think, I'm not going to exercise anymore. That's not how it happened. As I began to experience this sense, and it was taking me down a different path, I was drawn to moving this way. I could no longer teach Pilates in the way that I had been. I recognized that we don't have this separate core that we need to engage. I didn't need to lift heavy weights in the way that I had been, but maybe if I'm holding on to a weight, I can move differently. But that also, strength doesn't come from adding force, and it doesn't come from muscle bulk. So I wanted to just introduce my journey with fascia because I'm so fascinated with it, and also how I was hungry for the research. I've got papers everywhere about why what's happening in my body is happening and how it can help heal us from the inside out. If we connect to the nature of our biology, if we can understand how fascia integrates all our biological systems, and how a felt sense is so important in connecting to this inner intelligence that we have, this biointelligence, and shifting from biomechanics, the body as a body of parts that we need to fix, to a biointelligence of how the body can self-organize, it can self-move, it assembles itself at embryo stage, and the blueprint of how it assembles itself is still within our body. How fascia is sensory even before the nervous system forms. The nervous system cells start at the second week of life. And we have this bioenergy within the body. And what I'm most fascinated about is the way quantum biology informs our felt sense, how we are sensitive to nature and natural light, how patterns in nature connect with our body, how feel-good sensations arise. And my most mind-blowing one is fascia as a sense, has more nerve endings that tell us how we feel than inform how to move. So for example, voluntary movement. So when you're taught movement, it goes through a completely different neural pathway than movements that emerge from within. And that's my fascination, and why I am guiding movement sessions for you to explore on your own. So there's Move with Ease if you want to connect with that, if you want to connect to the nature of your motion. There's In Tune that helps you to connect to fascia as a whole, how to connect to nature, how to regulate from the inside out, how important it is to have that natural light in your day. But instead of just thinking about, oh, I need natural light, how does it feel? Fascia is a felt sense. How does your body respond? How can you find those nurturing, nourishing moments in your day to regulate your nervous system and to bring your body back in tune? So fascia holds the key to nervous system regulation. And that has been my fascination. So there's, I was telling you about the program. So there's In Tune, my monthly program that you can connect to and join and really discover this wisdom within. And also, if you are a movement professional or body worker and you're curious, you can start anywhere along that journey. And if you want to become a SomaSensing guide, I am starting my next certification. You can go to the website to explore that. And if you've missed that, you could always start with In Tune. It will still guide you to connect to this incredible sense that we have, and how it informs us of so much more than just movement. We go beyond mobility. I wonder how this is landing for you. I know I get really excited when I talk about this. If anything's like confusing, drop me a note, ask me questions, and I will create some more videos. And oh, by the way, I've created a series of videos that answer questions that you've asked. But what I wanted today is just to help you understand why I get so excited about fascia.